Thursday. Glad to be here. As you're each getting the notification as it's popping up as you're doing those things, I'm just putting my AirPods away. Happy to be here with you. A little segment that I call Coffee Chat. Glad to be here sharing with you. And man, I'm excited about just the season we're in, right? There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to gain. We're coming into the fall, which is my favorite year. We have um, soccer, we have football, basketball will be starting soon. The greatest time, and I would say baseball season is coming up before us playoffs. It's also kind of this seasonal reset. I love it, and it's something that I just man. I enjoy sports. I enjoy sports because of all the lessons that they teach us in life, even though we don't realize they're teaching us in life. And that's where I want to kick off this morning when my first topic, if you're watching on one of the platforms that has the caption, you'll see it there. If not, it's all good. It's when do you say something? And this can be hard and difficult. And let me just share with you, I'm in the middle of this circumstance from a leadership perspective and an organizational perspective. When do you say something? When do you step up and say, I have a problem. I see something that I have a question about. And this is the piece that really ties into the second piece, which is quiet quitting and leadership in our world today. And this is where I feel like it needs to be said, whether it's social, domestic, whatever, it's business, is when people are not safe, they don't feel safe. You can actively see that people don't feel safe. This is something that I was having a conversation earlier that's kind of alluded to this, and it was, when do you say something? I said something, and it was good, and it was a great conversation, and it's centered around not performance, result, any of those. It's, man, people don't feel safe. They're not acting in a way in which they feel safe. They're acting in a way where their body language says, I'm scared. I've had the opportunity going back into college. When I was a senior, I took a class called interpersonal communication. I took that class because I failed the previous requirement, which was econ, in order to graduate. So I took this class, interpersonal communication. I had an awesome professor. Really enjoyed him. A little quirky, but just I really enjoyed classes with him. And I learned about body language. Now, it was about 25 years later or so before I realized some of the things I learned and understood. And I got to create a relationship with a man named Joe Navarro. Joe Navarro is a former negotiator with the FBI, and he's written several books about body language. He then introduced me to one of his colleagues, Abby Morano. Both Joe and Abby were guests on my podcast, and it was all about body language. And one of the things that I've now been clued in to understand is body language when people feel safe or unsafe. Body language when people don't feel safe, they're dejected. Maybe their shoulders slump a little bit. It's also a form of insecurity where you guard yourself. That's when people don't feel safe. There's Vanessa Van Edwards is another great author and expert in this area of body language, and she describes a lot in her book Captivate. And what I've learned in leadership is we can be in tune to what people are really saying without saying. As a leader, it really gives us a heads up. And what this ties back to this idea of, when do you say something? You say something when people aren't safe. And maybe they're not saying it with their words, but all their body language is saying, I don't feel safe. I'm unsure what to do. I'm a little frantic. I'm all over the place, and I'm scared. That's what the body language says. And to me, that's always a time to say something. It's never about results, performance. And that ties into the next topic this morning. I wanted to dig into this current phenomenon of quiet quitting, where people just don't show up. To me, that is an indictment again on leadership, to say that people don't feel safe, that they're going to be heard, or safe that their input is going to matter. People quiet quit. We go back to the my time with Tessa West and her book Jerks at Work, and she discussed why people kind of do that. It's they don't have an impact. I'll just skirt on by. I'm allowed to do that. There's not the accountability, and accountability is part and parcel with safety. It's all good leadership. Those are areas that I've learned, and I encourage you that we can, as leaders, we can, as people, we can elicit more of those. How we carry ourselves, the words that we use, the tone in which we use. So that's my encouragement. When to say something when somebody's not feeling safe. But here's what also I would encourage you as a leader. Sometimes that means you have to be vulnerable enough to where people feel safe to be able to say something. All right, the last piece here I'm going to share with you this morning is my thought of the day. Something I like to share with you every day, and it's this. Or oh, well, hold on. Let me fix that. I sorry, I had the wrong one. Sorry about that. My thought of the day, I'll hide that and cancel that, is optimal and maximal are rarely the same. Optimal and maximal are rarely the same. I saw this morning where I was reading about some workouts, and it talked about doing exercises and doing them to the maximal amount, the maximal that we can actually do, the max range of motion. And then a comment, I said, really? You're not getting much there other than maybe a little bit more strain. It's really focusing on optimal. Let's focus on optimal rather than maximal. What's the optimum amount of time that you can spend during the day with activities and working and whatever that may be, as opposed to maximal? Maximal is I can work 20 hours a day. Doesn't mean that's optimal. Okay, great. There's certain people that profess have 3 days in one day, 3 6-hour chunks of work, and then you have 6 hours of other time. And it's like, well, is that optimal or is that just maximal? I would challenge to say maybe that's not optimal at all, but that's maximal, because there might be a lot of things that you're doing in those 3 6-hour blocks that don't need to be done. Or maybe you're forsaking other people in order to accomplish that. And why? Life's not a race. It's only a race with yourself. It's not a race with others. And those that, choose to be ruthless and racing with others, I would challenge that and to say, is that optimal? Or are you just going maximal? It's just a thought of the day. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys tuning in, commenting, chatting. Good morning to you all.